Okay, I'm back. I am horizontal. Sorry about that. I will never, never, ever do vertical video again. I truly do apologize. I didn't mean to mess with people by being vertical. I know vertical video is clearly did not work well for our purposes here. Okay, so I'm back, and we have never been more vertical than we are now. So anyway, yeah. Listen, we're gonna do on our next show. I am going to do a breakdown of everything that Donald Trump claimed as an accomplishment during this bizarre press conference. We're going to break down exactly which one of those count as accomplishments and which ones really don't. Okay, so that's going to be on our next program. The reason I actually wanted to talk about the Donald Trump press conference right now is tomorrow we have this story coming up on the show, which is going to make it so that between phone calls and all the other stuff that we have going on the Friday show, I'm just not going to have time to talk about the press conference tomorrow because we have a story tomorrow that we've been working on about actual fake news and disinformation. Now, by fake news, I don't mean news I disagree with politically. Okay, I do not mean that. What I mean by fake news is these sort of conspiracy, actual made-up news websites. And during the run-up to the 2016 election, we saw that undeniably the fake news was sort of pro-Trump, anti-Hillary fake news. In other words, it was bringing, it was sort of the opposition fake news with the idea that it was Democrats and Obama in power at the time, okay? Under Trump now, fake news is actually leaning left. Now, I know you're going to say, well, hold on a second. Breitbart, InfoWars, et cetera, et cetera. Absolutely, no doubt about it. But a study that was done by Stanford looked at the totality of fake news sites, and it is starting to lean left. And the point I'm going to make tomorrow, I'm going to give you some examples of that, okay? But the point I'm going to make tomorrow is, under Obama, the anti-Obama fake news was not necessary in a literal sense, but it made more sense to me because Obama basically had no scandals for 8 years. I don't think it's necessary for the left to do fake news under Trump because there's so much actual crazy stuff going on under Trump. And that only goes to confirm in my mind that the impetus of fake news is not necessarily to influence opinion. It's really the profit motive because fake news is quite profitable and advertisers are spending money on these websites. That being said, there's no doubt that some fake news is ideologically driven, but at the same time, there's a number of really good in-depth stories that have been done with different fake news purveyors, and most of them say some of them say I don't care about politics, and then others say I care about politics, but that's not how I choose stories. I just choose stories that are going to bring in ad dollars and make money, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something really, really interesting that we're going to be covering on tomorrow's show extensively in the first segment. And as a result, I probably am not going to have time to deal with the Trump press conference tomorrow, which deserves time, right? I mean, there's no doubt that that's something that we should be paying attention to. Big thank you to Megan Faulkner, new David Pakman Show member who has signed up at davidpakman.com literally during this live stream using the coupon code IVoted17, which will give you a 40% discount. Most of you probably know our program is viewer-funded, listener-funded. And every single time that we get a new sign up during this live stream, I will give a live shout out and thank you. And this one goes to Megan Faulkner. If you want a discount, coupon code IVoted17. Okay. Okay. I've talked about the Trump press conference a little bit. I've talked about disinformation, fake news, leaning left under Trump. Here's something else I wanted to mention. So we've been doing this survey at davidpakman.com/survey, which I hope you will take. And sort of give us some feedback about what we're doing that you like, what we're doing that you don't like. For the trolls, there's even like a open comment field where you could call me a cuck or make fun of me for being Jewish or all the sort of normal stuff that gets your opinion completely weeded out when we actually figure out what to do next. One of the really interesting things that has come up in the survey is overwhelmingly the audience seems to want longer interviews. And this applies not only to the podcast audience. I would expect that if someone is listening to an hour podcast, that's the type of audience member who would be interested in a longer interview. But even among YouTube viewers, people who primarily consume the David Pakman Show on YouTube, the number one sort of desire is for longer interviews. And I figured out a way, not that it was that complex, to do longer interviews, but not to make them take up more of each show, which is we've already booked, and we actually did this week with Peter Boghossian, a two-part interview. And the two-part interview will allow me to, in total, have like a 30-minute, 25 to 30-minute conversation with guests that are interesting. But it will still only be one segment of the 1 hour daily show. So if you don't watch the interviews and you just watch the 5-minute clips on YouTube, none of this matters, and it won't make any difference for you. But if you like the interviews, we won't separate them on YouTube. So on the broadcast show, we might have like a Monday, Tuesday two-parter, but it'll be all together on YouTube. And I think that this is, usually everything that we do has a downside, but I don't think that this has any downside, because if you want longer interviews, you'll get them. But if you don't care about the interviews, we're still going to be able to do 7 to 8 stories per show. So I think that is going to be a good thing. We've got a couple of interviews lined up already that are going to be like this. Again, we had Peter Boghossian. Today, the interview that was on today's broadcast show, which was with Andrew Torres. He's the host of the Opening Arguments legal podcast, which is awesome, and you should check it out. Maybe we could have gone 2 parts with him, but the problem was being Thursday. On Friday, we do a classic interview from the archives with a new commentary. So we would have pushed part 2 over the weekend. Anyway, it didn't seem to make sense. So a few comments coming through here. Number one, when I say we, do we have a team? Yes, we do. We have David Pakman Show producer Pat Ford. We have David Pakman Show segment producer Noah Ferguson, who has been responsible for, and when I say responsible for, it almost sounds like I'm blaming someone, but it's really praise. He has been involved in some of the great viral long-form pieces that we've done starting in January of last year with the Reza Aslan Cannot Be Trusted video, Undocumented Immigration video, alt-right, etc., etc. So that we have Noah Ferguson, who is doing a lot of great research. We also have intern Melody, who works in our studio a couple days a week. And then there's a whole bunch of other people sort of on the team. We've got 2 Reddit moderators that are helping to control the trolling that's going on there. We have a number of different contributors that have contributed graphics over the last couple of weeks. We've got Jeremy Pazensky, who is involved in the new graphics that have been rolling out on the show, and more will roll out over the next week or so. We've also got Tyler Twombly, who got in touch and said, hey, I want to contribute something. What if I do a new podcast icon, which has already been rolled out, and a whole bunch of different stuff that's been going on. So the team is growing, and if things go well, it's going to continue to grow. Someone mentioned in the comments that Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks agrees with me on Trump's literacy issues. If offline, if they played our video or commented on our story, I would want to add that to our mentions on other media list. So email me if that's the case. If Cenk just also mentioned, independent of our story, that he thinks Trump has literacy issues, then I guess that's not something that I would put on the channel. Okay, let me dig into a little more specifically about the Donald Trump press conference. And before we do that, thank you to, wow, this is a long list. Thank you to Amanda Bennett, who has just become a David Pakman Show member. Thomas Sevilla, great city in Spain, who has just become a David Pakman Show member. Eric Anderson, who has just signed up with the coupon code I voted 17. Lori Kelly, who has signed up with the coupon code I voted 17. Arturo Alviar, as well as Robin Luce. So a lot of new David Pakman Show members, live shout-outs and thank yous. There's Thomas. In the comments, you can use the coupon code I voted 17. Okay, so let me pull up Oh no, our Reddit already has an uploaded video, apparently, of me going from vertical to horizontal, and it was a disaster. Okay, our great Reddit moderator, Gloomskull, put together a bunch of the discussion points from Donald Trump's press conference. Let's go through it, and I think you're going to very quickly see that this was one of the most unusual, bizarre, but also substanceless press conferences that we've seen. The lying media, right? So attack the media. I think at this point, it's a disastrous idea for Trump to be attacking not only the media, but also our intelligence agencies. Media is going to increasingly fact check Trump. And by fact check, I'm not suggesting anything untoward, just fact checking, which is a disaster for Trump. Any fact checking of what Trump does is bad for Trump. And our intelligence agencies have made it abundantly clear that they have a ton of crap on Trump. The Russia stuff today, today, in the last 24 hours, the FBI released a bunch of the documents from that lawsuit against Donald Trump in the 70s for race-based discrimination, and the documents are absolutely and utterly insane. So if I were Trump, it just seems like bad strategy to go after the media as well as intelligence agencies. That's what he did. Donald Trump talked about having inherited massive challenges from President Obama, and that's why, if you're seeing anything not go well, it's not his fault. Does anybody else remember how when Democrats accurately said that about Donald Trump, about Barack Obama inheriting a disastrous economy and military situation overseas from George W. Bush, the Republicans said, hey, Obama's the president, it's all Obama's fault. And now all of a sudden, when Trump wants to blame Obama, incorrectly by the way, very strong economy, doesn't mean there isn't poverty, doesn't mean there aren't people who would rather be making more money, underemployed, wage issues, but a very strong economy. And now all of a sudden that same explanation, hey, I inherited challenges from Obama, now all of a sudden people are buying into that, doesn't make any sense to me. Bragging about his great diplomatic deals, and this is again from Gloomskull's great post on our Reddit discussion forum, and it's every single thing that we saw Trump talk about was either hypocritical or just made no sense whatsoever. The accomplishments, and I'm going to break this down more next week. The accomplishments Trump cited are not really accomplishments, right? I mean, he touted withdrawing from TPP. TPP was dead. TPP was dead when President Trump took over. It was abundantly clear November 15th. We heard from Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell. The U.S. is not signing on to TPP. Trump's calling it an accomplishment of his administration, getting us out of TPP. Deregulation for private business and corporation. Again, executive order which hasn't actually done anything yet. It's directing Congress to do something. Things haven't really been done. The few things that have been done quietly by Congress are absolute disasters, okay? And we're going to dig more into that. The hiring freeze on government employees. I've already talked about this. When you arbitrarily, so if you're government, if you're a business, if you're any organization, you should hire people when you need people to do work, right? If there's demand for labor, you should hire people. And if there's stuff to be done by the government, because the government does things, then you should hire people. When you do a hiring freeze on government employees, if there's work to be done, you end up hiring contractors, and contractors end up costing way more in two ways. Number one, on an hourly wage basis, you typically pay more for a contractor than a W-2 employee. That's just a general rule of how hiring works. But more importantly, when you bring in outsiders as contractors, you then are wasting time on inefficiencies because outsiders are going to need to learn the system. They're going to need to learn all sorts of stuff that an employee would know, and the working relationship is a disaster. Jimmy Carter tried this. I believe that there was a hiring freeze under Reagan as well. It was a Republican and a Democrat who both tried it. And it really just didn't work, okay? So that's, again, an accomplishment Trump cited during this bizarre Gong Show press conference that made no sense. I'll just pick a couple others here, okay? Here's a perfect example of what I talked about yesterday on the show in my segment called Do Trumpists Realize Trump Has Accomplished Nothing? Donald Trump cited as an accomplishment that he directed the creation of a task force for reducing violent crime in America. Okay, I dealt with this yesterday. Who's against reducing violent crime in America? Nobody, other than the people wanting to commit violent crime. Donald Trump signing an executive order directing the creation of a task force, again, it doesn't actually do anything. And this also applies, and this is the last one I'll deal with today, Donald Trump directing moving forward with the Dakota Access Pipeline and Keystone XL. It's terrible that the president is suggesting that we go forward with these antiquated fossil fuel technologies that other countries laugh at us when we say, hey, oh, China's the leader now, India's the leader on alternative energy. We're going to bring back coal jobs. The world is laughing, okay? But again, it's not actually something tangible to say, we want to go forward with that. It's an executive order that doesn't really do too much. Okay, let me address a few things that people are mentioning. One, people mentioning this weird caricature cartoon of me right over here. Yeah, this is very old, and I genuinely never thought that it really looked much like me. I guess what's exaggerated in it is my chin. My chin doesn't really stick out in that way. My eyes being close together, that's something people have mentioned, so maybe that's something. But yeah, I've never thought it was that good, but it's on the wall, and I've never taken it off. The nose people are asking about, I don't know. Maybe there's something to the nose. I'm not really not really sure about that. Okay, a couple more big thank yous to people on the stream who have signed up for memberships while I've been talking here. Catherine May, using the coupon code 33today. Jennifer Esco, using the coupon code I voted 17, and Cody Johnson signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. Again, with the coupon code I voted 17, it gives you a 40% discount. You decide. If 40% sounds like a good discount off of membership, and of course you get the daily bonus show when you sign up for that, then hey, you decide to use it or not to use it. Okay, so listen, those are some of my general thoughts about the Trump press conference. The funniest line maybe, the one cited at the end in this great Reddit post at davidpakman.com/Reddit by Gloomskull that he put together, quoting Trump when Trump said, "I'm not a bad person, by the way. I get good ratings." So certainly one of the more unusual press conferences, if this is what we have to look forward to for nearly 4 years, it's going to be the funniest thing we've ever experienced. It makes George W. Bush look like a sort of bright, articulate, thoughtful individual, which is insane. I never thought. I think I've praised George W. Bush more in the 26 days that Donald Trump has been the president than I did during the entire 8 years that George W. Bush was president. Okay, let me deal with a couple other things. Questions have been coming in about, well, basically, there's two things where questions have been coming in. We did this Indiegogo fundraiser that ended nearly a month ago, okay? And there were a lot of things we wanted to do. We fell short of the total goal, but we still raised enough money to do some of the things that we wanted to do, okay? So, Progressive Engagement Coordinator, David Pakman Show on Amazon Prime, studio redesign. Okay, let me address those three things. Let me start with David Pakman Show on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, we've been working with them very aggressively to get the program on Amazon Prime because it's a very large platform. It would be really great to be on there. The issue we're having, and this is the same issue some other shows I've been in touch with have had, is that Amazon Prime has put in place arguably the most aggressive restrictions on what the program can look like. So to give you a couple of examples, we used to have in the lower right corner of our show a little David Pakman Show logo that was kind of animated. It would have like a light flare. And we submitted the program to Amazon Prime, and they came back and said, you're not allowed to have any static graphics that pervade the entire show, which referenced our little David Pakman Show bug. So we got rid of that, and we resubmitted the show. And then they came back, and they said, you must have subtitles for every single show so that it is accessible to the hard of hearing, which I actually think is a great thing. But we had to figure out how to do that. We went back and forth. I asked for audience recommendations. We found a service that would turn around in within about an hour and a half a full transcript of the show in subtitle format, resubmitted it to Amazon Prime for approval. They came back. They said, it appears as though on screen you have graphics that reference external websites during the show. Of course we do. I mean, we have a graphic about membership. When we have a guest on, we have a graphic for the guest's website. At the end or beginning of segments, we might have a logo going to facebook.com/David Pakman Show or whatever. So basically, we need to remove everything from the show that makes it what I consider a better produced show than we had 2 years ago in order to get it accepted on Amazon Prime. And so because we didn't raise all the money we wanted to, I'm thinking that that would be what we drop from our plan. We're still moving forward with the Progressive Engagement Coordinator. We've been taking applications for people who want to work on that side out of our Boston studio, and that is still happening. And in addition to that, the new studio design is on its way. Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you about what's going on. During the fundraiser process, we had a studio designer come in. We talked about budget. We talked about what I want. And we've been going back and forth with some designs. We just recently sort of finalized what the design it's going to be, and it came back at twice the cost that we had initially talked about. So right now, we're basically in the now that we figured out what we want, how can we get it back to the budget that we were talking about? But the studio redesign is absolutely going to happen. It's going to significantly match the new graphics and the color schemes and all of that. Okay, so that's the latest as far as that's going on. We have a super chat that was sent by Mr. Steele Yo Counter Argument, which says, how do you feel about how divided Gamergate became over Trump in the past year? I think it's the last bipartisan social movement we'll have in a while. I have no idea what you're talking about. I have almost completely tuned out to what has been going on with Gamergate since our interviews on the subject kind of ended. So I didn't know. I don't know if you mean that Gamergate is divided in that some Gamergaters support Trump and some don't, or if you mean bipartisan in that Gamergaters and non-Gamergaters came together around Trump. I genuinely don't know how to answer that because I have no clue what on earth is going on with that, okay? So I'm sorry that I can't comment more on that. Okay, a couple more shout outs to new subscribers that have signed up just while I've been chatting here at davidpakman.com/membership. Holly Aguilar, I hope I'm pronouncing that somewhat right, has signed up with the coupon code I voted 17. Matthew, man, I am butchering some of these names, Bissonette, the last name I'm confident with, has signed up at davidpakman.com/membership, again with the 40% coupon code I voted 17. And Robert Baker also signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. I saw a couple questions stream through there about who should play Stephen Miller on Saturday Night Live. So we were asked this by voicemail. I think it was on yesterday's show. I like the idea of the guy who plays Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory playing Stephen Miller on SNL, and Parsons, Jim Parsons, I think his name is Jim Parsons. I think that would be really funny. But then someone else came back to me and said, David, Paul Rubens, who does Pee Wee Herman, is the guy who should be playing Stephen Miller, which is funny, although Paul Rubens is a little bit older now, so I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm sure he could be made up in a way that it would work. But then someone else came and said, David, no, you need a woman. You need a woman to play Stephen Miller, because when a woman played Sean Spicer, Melissa McCarthy, Donald Trump went completely off the deep end haywire. And that's what you just need to figure out, what woman you can get to play Stephen Miller, just to add what really shouldn't be insult to injury, but apparently to Donald Trump is if a woman plays a man. Yeah. So, okay, a few people discussing the David Pakman Show Patreon. We have basically shut down Patreon. I don't actually know how to delete the page, but we transitioned. I realized when we were doing Patreon, it was cannibalizing our membership and also confusing people, where people didn't know, well, what's the difference between Patreon and membership? And if I have one but not the other, do I get the same stuff or different stuff, etc.? So Patreon is basically shut down. And we're just doing the membership thing, and all the benefits are under membership. To respond to what Clarth1234 is saying, Patreon was not cheaper than membership. It was $1 less per month if you did the $5 a month thing, but you had way fewer perks. Okay, Winona Ryder playing Stephen Miller on Saturday Night Live. I like that. Someone just mentioned that. Who was that mentioned that? It was, oh boy, the chat is going so quickly I can't even find it. Well, listen, I apologize. Someone suggested Winona Ryder. Stephen Miller has this sort of like kind of small oval head. And I think that if Winona Ryder were able to sort of pull back all the hair, or maybe wear like one of those bald caps and then a toupee on top of it, I think that would work pretty well to be Stephen Miller there. I like it. Okay. Predictions about, so yeah, tonight Milo Yiannopoulos is going to be on Bill Maher's show. Jeremy Scahill tweeted that he was bailing on the Bill Maher appearance because Milo is going to be on the Bill Maher show. I have no idea what to expect. I hope, as someone who has interviewed Milo before, years ago, before he became who he is now, I hope that Bill Maher is going to be adversarial and confrontational, but I really don't know what to expect. A couple people emailed me saying they think that Bill Maher is going to be in some way supportive of the concept of what Milo is doing while not agreeing with his politics. So I don't really know what to expect. Okay. A couple other new members that I want to say a big thank you to that just signed up while we've been chatting here. Scott Williams and Terrell Turner, as well as, oh boy, Constantina Purperis. Some of these names are not the easiest to say. Thank you to the three of you for signing up at davidpakman.com/membership. And you can indeed use the coupon code IVoted17 for a discount. I saw another idea just float by in the chat, which is, what about getting a man to play Ivanka or Melania even on Saturday Night Live? I think that would be a really great idea. Let me address something. A lot of people are talking about me debating Steven Crowder, who I believe, I only know about him a little bit. I think he's a Canadian guy who talks mostly now, I guess, about U.S. politics. I don't know if he's based in the U.S. or not. I saw one video of his, and he has a ton of YouTube subscribers. Some people saying that he would destroy this cuck, referring to me during a debate or whatever. I would be perfectly fine talking to him and having a conversation. The idea that he would destroy me in a debate, I mean, I think it depends on, well, what's the conversation, what's the topic, and what's the format of it. This idea of destroying people in debates, what it really comes down to is sort of like what are the facts and the preparation and knowledge that each person has. It seems odd to me to just say offhand that as a cuck, which apparently I am, that's one of the more common words I think at this point on the channel, that I'd get destroyed by Steven Crowder. I would be thrilled to have him on. And I don't know if that's something he's interested in doing or or whatever. Okay, so we can absolutely look into that. Okay, what else did I have that I wanted to mention? We already talked about, to catch you up if you've just joined, we started with vertical video. It was a disaster. I disconnected. We reconnected with horizontal video. And since then, we've talked about the Donald Trump Gong Show press conference today. We've talked about a story we're doing on tomorrow's show of misinformation, disinformation, fake news leaning left under Donald Trump. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. I've talked about upcoming changes to the David Pakman Show. I've talked about the long interviews that we're going to be doing, new graphics, etc., etc. And we've done a lot of shout outs to people that have signed up for membership. Also, let me address there's a lot of drama going on with Dave Rubin, okay? And so I think I've never hidden the fact that I've been in touch with Dave Rubin for a while. We'll text or email back and forth with not huge frequency, but every few weeks there's, for whatever reason, we text back and forth for a while and then we don't hear from each other for a while. He's been on my show, I've been on his show. There's a lot of people, and there's a caller on this week who called in basically saying, it was sort of like, I don't know that I'd use the word baiting, but basically trying to get me to issue some kind of general critique of Dave Rubin. And I don't shy away nor go towards criticizing or praising anybody just because I know them personally. And I've said sort of what I would say to Dave Rubin if we were to talk, and maybe at some point he'd be back on my show or I'd be on his, which is, I don't subscribe to the criticism of him that his interviewing style is not to go point counterpoint. Okay, that's an interviewing technique. Sometimes I recently interviewed this alt-right leader, Richard Spencer, white nationalist dude, and people criticized me because I wasn't on every single point that he made shouting him down or belaboring it, because I sort of realized that we're going to learn more from figuring out where a number of his ideas come from and what they're based on than me just completely interrupting the interview and we just spend 35 minutes arguing about the first thing he says, okay? So the criticism of Rubin that he doesn't go adversarial during an interview, I don't think is a legit criticism. Where I would take issue with a sort of editorial decision that he made, and again, I have no problem saying this to Dave, and hopefully at some point we can talk about it on my show or his show. He did do an interview, and I don't even remember the person's name. I think it was this young dude whose name escapes me, who has been sort of like the champion of the millennial pro-fossil fuel movement. It's this dude who goes around, and he's very, very, I'm sure someone knows this guy's name. He's very, very smooth at presenting information about climate change to make it seem as though we really just don't know and we can't trust the 99% of scientists, whatever. And there was what I thought was, it was a little bit concerning to me. Alex Epstein, yes, Joel Ortega, Alex, and Clarth also saying Alex Epstein. That's exactly who it is. I think that it's concerning, and Kyle Kulinski had a good video about this lately. And again, with Kyle, again, someone that I text with some frequency. Things I agree with him on, things I disagree. Reasonable people can disagree, and we can talk about stuff. Kyle had a really good video that I don't think had anything to do with Dave Rubin, but he said we shouldn't confuse neutrality with objectivity. And I think that there are times where it can be dangerous to be neutral when neutrality is in no way objective. And the sort of caricature of this is if we were to have, after the New England Patriots destroy the Atlanta Falcons, right? I mean, the Atlanta Falcons have this game where they fall apart in really in a historic way in terms of the lead that they lost in that Super Bowl 51. If afterwards we have 5 panelists, 4 of whom want to talk about what an amazing victory it was that the New England Patriots were able to achieve, and then one guest who says, yeah, the Falcons won the game, right? We would say, well, that might have the appearance of neutrality because you're giving voice to differing opinions, but there's nothing objective of that because objectivity tells us that the New England Patriots won the game. It's a caricature, sort of like this one right here of me that's behind me. But it's an example of why I think that can be problematic. And hopefully I can have Dave on, or he'll have me on his show, and we can sort of dig into this issue a little more. So if someone's looking for a blanket criticism of Dave because he doesn't yell at the people that he interviews, that you're not going to see that from me. But I'm glad to sort of explore specific positions that he takes, and we can look at that. Okay, big thank you to Carol Newsom, who has just created a David Pakman Show membership at davidpakman.com/membership, as well as Benjamin Ramos, who has signed up with the coupon code IVoted17 at davidpakman.com/membership. People asking, what do you get with a membership? So number one, if you're used to watching 3 to 5 minute clips on YouTube, our members every single day, way earlier, by the way, than the YouTube clips come out, get a 1 hour minus the commercial. So it ends up being about 51 minutes. A 51-minute single video with the entire show. So we release our clips on a 90-minute interval starting at 4:30 p.m. for that day's show. Members get the full hour without commercials as a video. It's usually up by around 4 o'clock or something like that. And in addition to that, we do an entire additional show just for our paid subscribers. It's called the bonus show. We do different types of stories. It's less, it's political, but we also do tech stories. We also do previews or behind the scenes stuff that's going on with the show. We'll talk about upcoming interviews and all of this sort of thing, to quote Arnold Schwarzenegger. And every once in a while, we also do other stuff, like a members-only video conference and that type of thing. All right, so thanks to everybody who has signed up during the stream. IVoted17 gives you a 40% discount for all of that stuff, making it only $3.60 a month to be a member, okay? Last thing I want to mention here before I move on from the chat. I've seen it in the chat, and a few people have asked me my thoughts on Brianna Wu, who, if you don't know who she is, don't worry about it. But she was the first Gamergate-related interview, I think, that I did a year and a half ago or something like that. She's, I guess, running as a primary challenger to Stephen Lynch, who's a congressman here in Massachusetts. I believe it's Stephen Lynch. I hope I have that right. And people have asked me if I've taken a position on that. I haven't. I know very little about it. I don't know what her platform is. I don't know what her purported qualifications are or anything like that. So I can't comment, but if it appears as though she has a shot, we don't really do too much commenting on primary House races, especially Democratic primaries in blue states like Massachusetts. But if at some point it seems as though I should be commenting on that, believe me that I will. Joel Boozley, thank you for subscribing with the coupon code IVoted17, and there he is saying done in the chat. Really appreciate it. I will do another live stream soon, and we've got a great show coming up for you tomorrow.